I was a middle school and high school teacher for 15 years in California, and I just saw all of the garbage that they're force feeding our kids, and I exposed it. And from that, I'm like a woman on fire now, because what they're doing to our kids is so damaging with critical race theory, all the LGBTQ plus propaganda, and just teaching kids to hate America. There's definitely agenda going on in our schools, and I've seen it firsthand.
What did you teach, and what grade?
Yeah, I taught the English learners, so kids that are coming to this country to learn English, and I also taught the low readers. And they, especially the English learners, they come to this country with so much hope, and the teachers are coming and bursting that bubble. And it's really sad.
In what ways?
So they're teaching them that America is a racist country and that it's really hard for black and brown kids to rise above their skin color, which I completely disagree with. And they're just teaching them that, there's the white man is out to oppress them. They're teaching them the concept of intersectionality, basically adding up all your different oppressions. So someone like me, black, female, I have two oppressions, right? And they're just basically doing so much labeling of children before they even get a chance in society. And it's not, I'm not exaggerating this. This is actually happening. I have screenshots of the lessons, especially in California.
What were the types of things that were in these lessons that started to sound the alarms for you?
So in California, there's an ethnic studies course. It just got passed as a law by Gavin Newsom to require ethnic studies for graduation. My district decided to go ahead of it and start requiring it right away. And because I think it's a few years before districts have to actually require it. And in this course, it basically is a critical race theory class. My students were actually taught the definition of critical race theory. They were taught to analyze school policy through critical race theory, and they were taught all of the tenets of it. And this is a required class for ninth graders. And I was noticing that a lot of my students were failing the class, this required class. So I would ask them, why are you failing your ethnic studies course? And my students would tell me, Ms. Fontanilla, this class is so stupid. Why do I have to take this class? And I looked into the lessons and I saw all of this. They're teaching them the concept of intersectionality, hegemony, implicit bias, white privilege. They had the kids take a privilege quiz on day 5 and compare their privileges against classmates. This is not a history. This isn't even teaching the teaching of hard history. This is a leftist, racist brainwashing class.
And where is it coming from? Is it coming from pressure from the parents to want this? Is it coming from school boards? Where is this originating from?
It's definitely coming from the school boards and school officials. Okay. Parents are not asking for this, especially
parents aware?
Especially parents are not aware either, especially our English learner parents. So parents that they're actually being taken advantage of in this country because they come trusting teachers, trusting our educational system. A lot of them have moved to America because they want their kids to have a better education, and they just trust us blindly, and they're getting this garbage when they don't even know about it, because some of them don't even know English to be able to understand what their child is being taught. So I actually wrote a guide against critical race theory for Blexit, which is Candace Owens' organization, and you can find it on their website, but we're getting that translated into Spanish so that it can be accessible to more parents for them to see exactly what's happening in the schools, because you don't want your kid to come to America and then be taught you're just going to be a victim and held down.
Yeah,
that is not the time.
American
even
dream.
if it was true, why are we telling that to them in their most formative years, giving them that bad news? It's not true, but why are we giving black and brown kids this news that you're not going to make it in life because you have a certain skin color? It's going to be so much harder for you.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, they're doing the white privilege. They're teaching kids about white privilege, and that's not even a joke. There was a meme in the lesson where they had a picture of 2 white girls graduating, and they said some people are born on third base and thought they hit a home run. So like white kids are born on third base, and so they have a head start. So when they graduate college, it's not really that big of a deal because they were already born on third base. So when we're telling a kid that they only got to where they're at because of the color of their skin, that's also reverse racism.
Yeah.
I know so many kids of all skin colors who have had to fight hard backgrounds in their lives and get to where they're at without help.
To think,
exactly. You got here because of your skin color. Yeah, it's such toxic, and that's just one element of what's going on in our public schools. They're being attacked in all angles, LGBTQ stuff with just even just not even teaching them correct literacy, and our kids are coming out not reading at grade level.
We're going to focus on why you will never succeed, but we're going to forget to teach math and English,
thank you. Yes.
Things that actually might help you succeed.
Yes.
When you brought this to the attention of your superiors, when you did push back, what happened?
So I wrote a letter to my school board, and I got called anti-people of color. I'm Jamaican and white.
Did they have a picture of you?
They knew I was, but you get labeled. Yeah. So that's the problem. When you speak up against this stuff, you will get labeled as white supremacist, anti-people of color, racist, just all kinds of horrible things. And it's like, that's not, I think actually they're the anti-people of color.
Yeah.
You're the ones telling black and brown kids that they're victims, that everyone's only going to look at them because of the color, they're only going to see the color of their skin first. That's anti-people of color to me. And I'm just seeing, we didn't have this 5-6 years ago. There wasn't this agenda to just push all this hyper race focus on our kids. And it's not producing good fruit. I mean, look at the fruit. I mean, I'm being called racial slurs all the time now. I'm a 40-year-old teacher. Why do I deserve? That's the fruit that this type of stuff is producing. It's producing a lot of racism and division. And it's not, CRT has not solved racism. It's only made it worse.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing that a lot in our schools. And to be called anti-people of color by the school board president on Facebook. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm just like, what are you kidding? I've been working with black and brown kids for 15 years. How many kids have you helped teach, taught, I can't even speak, have taught to read? How many kids have you helped get into college?
Yeah,
exactly. None. And you're going to call me anti-people of color, and that's my whole career has been helping young black and brown kids get into
People
college.
Of color, yeah.
Exactly. It's ridiculous.
You quit.
Yeah.
Did you feel pushed out? Did you have any support among your colleagues? Other teachers that had your back?
They have to stay silent. They'll send me messages, but I can't say their names. The teachers that, especially if they're the wrong skin color.
They fear retaliation?
But, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of, bullying and retaliation if you don't. I mean, even though I don't work for the district anymore, I still have some bullying from people that I worked with. Some colleagues will say things about me on Twitter or say I'm only speaking out for attention. I'm like, this is the lamest thing to get attention for. I do not enjoy being called racial slurs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things I could get attention for that would not garner this much hate,
Yeah.
But I just, with everything happening in our schools, I knew that I took a stance on Black Lives Matter. I took a stance on critical race theory. We are having more and more kids identify as non-binary or gender fluid and going with the they, them pronouns. I knew that was going to be when they were going to actually go after me, because that is untouchable. You cannot, as a teacher, you have to make sure you're addressing your kids with the correct pronouns, or you will get fired. So I knew at this point, I was like, okay, this is time when I need to resign because I can't go along with this anymore. Because 5 years ago, we did not have 9 non-binary students. That wasn't even a thing.
Do you feel like the students are being encouraged, this is to be a straight, maybe heterosexual is no longer a cool thing, and this is more of the new, when I was growing up, it was kind of edgy to be kind of a goth punk or something. Is this sort of the new cool?
They're being encouraged to have an oppression. So when you identify as LGBTQ or any of that, means now you have an oppression. And so we're seeing, especially amongst young white girls, wanting to identify as, a trans
something,
male. Yeah, because they are at the peak of privilege, and they're kind of left out, So we're seeing an epidemic, especially amongst girls, of wanting to identify as the other gender, as male. And it's definitely encouraged in schools, and you get a lot of attention for it. There's a lot of teachers that encourage it. There's a lot of grooming, I guess that's the best way that's happening behind closed doors. And it's definitely, there is an agenda to...
What do you make of the politicians, our leaders, who are like, critical race theory is a right-wing conspiracy, it doesn't exist, and you're a lunatic if you think so?
I've had so many people tell me that exact line. I'm like, where did you hear that? Did you actually speak to a teacher, or did you just listen to that on The View or on CNN? Because if you take the time to actually listen to a teacher, especially teachers that are pro CRT, they're going to say they're actually teaching it. There was when there has been like states that have banned it, there's been teachers that have signed petitions. There was a petition that was signed by 5,000 teachers saying they're going to continue to teach critical race theory. And then I, as a teacher, saw the lessons firsthand. I saw what they were giving to our kids, and it wasn't just, a hidden version of critical race theory. It was straight up, here's critical race theory, this is the definition, here's quotes from the founders of critical race theory, and here's a lesson where you're supposed to analyze school policy through critical race theory. And they were taught about Marxism in 9th grade, and that's part of critical race theory. So that is just, I think what they're trying to do is, it's almost like the left is admitting that it's bad by saying it's not in our schools. And now that we know that it is, they should be rejoicing and saying, oh yeah, we're happy about it. But no, they still want to keep fighting us about it because they know it's a losing theory. It is. Like
if it's exposed, parents are not going to want it. Happy.
So they have to say it's not there because otherwise they're going to be exposed. And
talk to me about what you're doing now. You're starting a new group. What's it called? What are the goals?
So I started my own online school called Exodus Institute. It's a fully accredited kindergarten through 12th grade school. And
for homeschooling?
It's for parents that want to pull their kids from public school and maybe necessarily don't want to be the teacher, but they want to be, they want their kids to have an education that isn't full of leftist indoctrination. So it's K through 12, fully accredited. Then we also have a program for parents that have homeschooled their kids, but they want to add lessons. So maybe they don't want a full program and they can just get a few lessons from us, and it's only $20 a month. They're on-demand lessons for kids to get lessons on communism and why it's bad, lessons on the American dream, really good Black history, because right now they're teaching a very distorted version of Black history. And
talk to me a little bit about that. That's not really something that I've heard.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So left is rewriting history. They are trying to paint a picture that only white Americans are part of slavery, when slavery was a worldwide phenomenon at the time. And we were actually pretty progressive to keep it in a smaller area. Like our country didn't have it legal countrywide. It was, and then we fought to get rid of it. That was no other country had ever done that, used their own men to sacrifice their lives to stop slavery in their own country. And then on top of that, they don't teach kids the fact that Cherokee owned slaves. In fact, they didn't even free them with the 13th Amendment. It was a few years later. White men had to go convince the Cherokee to free their Black slaves, and they didn't include them in tribal membership, the descendants of their slaves in tribal membership until the last 2 years. 2 years ago, there was this call, hey, you guys own slaves, now their descendants are wanting tribal membership and you're not allowing them to have tribal membership. So of course that they will never teach that to kids because it doesn't paint the picture of only white Americans were part of slavery, so they're rewriting history to paint this picture of the big, and we're not saying that slavery was a good thing. And that's the other thing. They'll say, oh, you're just trying to justify. No, it was abhorrent, but everyone was participating in it. Most countries, all of the most developed countries had slaves. And so to paint this idea that it was only white Americans and we need to make them pay reparations and they're the evil white man, which is, there are kids nowadays that believe that. When they see white people, they think they are the enemy. They are the ones that have been oppressing them for hundreds of years, when really the greatest enemy is your own mind. That's who. And so we are really working hard to make sure we're giving a balanced view of history, with and teaching stuff that they like to leave out of our textbooks so that they can paint a narrative.
One question I often get from people, especially these last 2 years, I think these last 2 years have really taken people that might not have been paying attention to the politics of today, and really their eyes are kind of opening, saying, well, this is a little strange. Why are we doing this? Why are we, between the lockdowns, the vaccine, the critical race theory, just a lot of things have happened.
Yeah.
One question I often get is why? What's the end goal here? And from your perspective, what do you think is the goal? What do you think this is all about?
Well, critical race theory was founded by Marxists, and we know that, this is not a conspiracy theory. They've been planning. If you study the rise of communist Russia, the rise of communist China, they always went after the kids. So if you were a Christian in Russia and China, you were allowed to still go to church, but you were not allowed to baptize kids. You were not allowed to proselytize or teach them about Jesus, and you would get thrown in jail and prison. So they know that if they can capture a generation, they can capture the nation. And if you look at kids that are in college right now, 50% of them think that socialism is good for America. Well, those seeds were planted in high school and middle school. And we think that our schools are being taken over by the left. We know that our colleges have been taken over by the left, but our middle schools and high schools are like that now too. And we have a new generation of teachers coming in that have been radicalized by their college education that are now teaching our students. So if you follow libs of TikTok, you see that most of these teachers that are saying these crazy things that are like identifying as non-binary and coming out in front of their students, they're all under 40. That's this new generation of teachers that are coming in and putting their indoctrination on our kids. And they believe that they are morally right. It's not even about politics. They think that this is going to be the solution to save America. And they're pushing it on our kids, and they want a revolution. That's what they want. That's the end game, is a revolution. And it's not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact. And we see it playing before our eyes.
I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you wrote a sort of an explainer for Blexit.
Yeah.
The black community, it's typically voting Democrat, but it also has a lot of Christian people of real faith. And we have so many issues right now between the trans ideology, the loss of faith, the breakdown of the nuclear family, the uptick of crimes. Like, what's the solution here? Is it something that can be fixed by just having more fathers present? Is it a faith thing? Is it we need to get rid of the guns? I mean, what do you think is troubling? Because we're seeing just so many of our youth not living that American dream. And does it start in the schools? Like, what do you think?
I think the individual. I think that, yes, I wish fathers would come back, but I don't see that happening quickly. And I was raised without my dad, and I could basically count all my oppressions if I wanted to. But teaching young people that they can, empowering them to take control of their own lives. We are in America. And teaching them that they can, their circumstances may be bad right now, but they can change them. That is where we can see a lot of growth and progress, because I've seen it myself in my own life, and I just think that what they're doing right now is teaching kids the opposite. I always would tell my students, like I said, your greatest enemy is your own mind. Like, you are the one that puts limits on yourself. And if now they're having their teachers putting limits on them, you're never going to be, you're always going to be treated differently by police because of the color of your skin. You're always going to be, oppressed by the white man. They're going to look at your skin color first. Instead of, what can I do to change my circumstances? I can't change you. Maybe you are going to treat me like in a racist way. There are still racists that exist, of course, but I can change my reaction and what I'm going to do with that, with the way that you are treating me. And they're teaching kids just to stay in this little box, their little race box, when they can just break out of it and be whoever they want to be. And so we really need to make sure we have teachers that are empowering kids and parents that are empowering kids to tell them that they don't have to be a victim of their skin color, and they can, rise above it and not follow the narrative of you're going to be oppressed for the rest of your life.
One last thing I want to ask about is our soon-to-be newest Supreme Court Justice, first black female, historic. In and of itself, it seems like someone who is really, aspired to the highest court in the nation.
Yeah.
But the fact that our president came out and said, "I'm going to pick a black woman."
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about sort of that reverse discrimination, reverse affirmative action. I mean, as a black woman yourself, I mean, how would you feel if you're only here because you're black?
I was told that when I got into my Master's of Education program for getting my teaching credential and Master's in Education. I was told, we were talking, a group of us students, this is at UC Santa Cruz, we're talking about our GPAs. And I had a 3.2 GPA. I wasn't like the best in my undergrad. And they were like, wow, you got in? Because everybody else had to have like a 3.5 or a 3.6. You must have got in because you're a black woman. And that I was like, oh, wow. Actually, I don't know. I don't know if that's really why I got in, like, and that just made me feel so like, wow, is that's why I was accepted into this. I mean, I did a lot of extracurricular stuff, so maybe that was what got me in. But that's
having that question,
but that's how they viewed me. The other students, they viewed me as getting in as like an affirmative action pick, and so, and then at what cost? What cost is it that we limited ourselves to only choosing a black woman for the Supreme Court? Someone who was more lenient on child predators than any other judge in our nation right now. And that's not even an exaggeration. If you compare her to the other judges in our nation that had the same seat that she did, she was lenient like 100% of the time on these child predators. At what cost was it that we limited ourselves to only a black woman? And then, do we not have Indian women and Mexican women in this country and Chinese women that have never been on the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Why did they get immediately excluded too?
Yeah.
So it's really it's racist. That's plain and simple. You're judging people on the color of their skin rather than their merit and the content of their character.